My name is Sophie Perez. I'm 34, and I always believed that I had the kind of life people envy. A decade-long career as a lawyer had taught me discipline, patience, and the art of reading people, their words, their silences, their lies. Yet somehow I had missed the signs that my husband, Daniel Jackson, was living a double life right under my nose. Our marriage had always felt like a carefully choreographed dance. We laughed, we traveled, we bought the house we thought we deserved. Daniel was charming, ambitious, the type of man whose calm confidence could fill a room, or so I thought. It started subtly. First, a few unexplained withdrawals from our joint account. $500 here, $1,200 there. Small enough to dismiss, but enough to prick my instinct. I chalked it up to mistakes, to him handling finances while I was buried, in case files and client meetings. But as months went by, the numbers grew more alarming. $54,000 siphoned in 18 months. The first text that tipped me off came on a Thursday evening. I wasn't snooping, not really. I just noticed his phone buzzing across the counter, a name I didn't recognize flashing in the glow, Erin. A quick search revealed she was a personal trainer he had mentioned months ago. But the texts weren't about workouts. They were intimate, flirtatious, financial. Daniel bragging about what he could spend. Erin planning vacations, both of them laughing at the absurdity of our perfect marriage. I remember sitting on our beige leather couch, phone in hand, the apartment quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I felt disbelief first, a visceral knot in my stomach, then anger, and then an icy clarity. This wasn't a brief indiscretion. It was an orchestrated betrayal. I confronted him that night. I kept my voice steady, even as my heart pounded. "Daniel, we need to talk, now." He looked up from his laptop, surprised. Or maybe he thought I'd be easy to soothe, as usual. "Sophie, what is it? Can it wait? I'm in the middle of—" "Don't. Stop." My hands were trembling slightly, but my words cut sharper than any legal brief I'd ever written. "I know about Erin. I know about the money. Explain." Daniel froze, a flash of guilt crossing his features, then the practiced charm. "You're overreacting. It's just, she helps me with fitness, and the withdrawals, business investments, temporary, nothing that matters." I felt my chest tighten, the audacity, the lies. Temporary? Daniel, $54,000 is not temporary. And don't even start pretending this is about fitness. I've seen the texts, the posts. You're having an affair. His expression shifted, irritation now mixing with defensiveness. "Sophie, you always make everything into a lawsuit. I'm tired of feeling policed in my own marriage. Can't you just let it go?" And that was it. That single sentence sealed the fate of our marriage. Let it go? Betrayal isn't something you let go of. I realized in that instant that trust was gone. Gone like water down a drain, irretrievable. I spent the night awake, replaying every moment of our past 8 years. The dinners, the vacations, the laughter, they now felt like fragments of an illusion. And Erin, the trainer, the golden-haired woman with a sharp smile, had been orchestrating a silent invasion of my life, funded by my own savings. By morning, I had a plan. Not emotional, not impulsive, but precise. I would document everything, every withdrawal, every text, every social media post where Erin appeared beside him, laughing, flaunting, reminding me that my world was being stolen, quietly, methodically. I would prepare for a confrontation that wasn't just about anger. It would be about reclaiming my life. For the next week, I moved like a shadow, checking accounts, cataloging posts, securing screenshots, even noting timestamps and geolocations. I didn't speak to Daniel beyond necessary exchanges. My mind, honed by 10 years of law practice, treated this like a case. The difference? I was both the investigator and the client. And then came the moment that made my blood run cold. Daniel had become careless. A text I intercepted from Erin gleamed in its boldness. "Can't wait to take him for everything he's worth. Already planning our victory vacation with the money." I leaned back, exhaling slowly. There it was. The truth laid bare. They weren't just having an affair. They were plotting, calculating. And my husband, the man I loved, the man I had built my life with, was fully complicit. That night, I sat in the quiet kitchen, a cup of untouched coffee cooling on the counter, and thought, what do I do now? Do I confront them publicly, let rage guide me, or do I gather evidence, prepare, and strike with precision? I chose precision. Daniel would come home the next evening, expecting routine, expecting me to be placated by excuses, charm, apologies. Instead, he found me calm, collected, sitting at the dining table, laptop open, documents organized in neat digital folders. Sophie, what is all this? He asked, sensing the change in my demeanor. I looked up, eyes steady. It's everything. Every withdrawal, every post, every text between you and Aaron. And yes, Daniel, I have screenshots of your plans to take me for everything. We're done. I want a divorce. He laughed, a bitter, incredulous sound. You think you can just walk away after everything? After what I've done for you? I didn't flinch. No, Daniel, you've done nothing for me, but I will make sure the law is on my side, and you will answer for your choices. For the first time in months, I saw fear flash across his face. Not regret, fear. That night, I slept with one eye open, but my mind was clear. I had been blindsided, betrayed, yet I wasn't broken. I had the skills, the knowledge, and now the motive. And while Daniel had Aaron by his side, plotting our ruin, I had something far more powerful. A decade of law experience and a mind that refused to be underestimated. In the quiet of my bedroom, I whispered to myself, almost like a vow, you may have taken my trust, Daniel, but you will not take my life. You will not take my home, and you will not underestimate me. The battle lines were drawn. The morning after my confrontation with Daniel, our apartment felt like a crime scene, though no one had been arrested. Every glance at him, every casual comment, carried the weight of betrayal. He avoided eye contact, kept his phone glued to his hand, and, most tellingly, didn't deny a single thing. I, on the other hand, moved deliberately. My law degree, 10 years of practice, and instinct for strategy gave me a strange sense of calm. I wasn't just angry, I was methodical. I knew that when it came to divorce, the law was a weapon, but only if wielded correctly, and wield it I would. First, I needed evidence. Daniel thought deleting messages and covering tracks would be enough. I hired a private investigator to corroborate the financial trail. Every withdrawal, every transfer to Aaron's accounts, every luxury purchase from our joint accounts, it was all logged. There were photographs of Aaron at his office, screenshots of their social media posts, even a vacation that they claimed was solo adventure, but was clearly funded by money taken from me. My inner monologue was a whirlwind of frustration and moral calculation. How could I have missed this? How did someone so close betray me with such audacity? And yet every pang of hurt hardened my resolve. Daniel had gambled on my naivety. He had underestimated my intelligence, my skill, my capacity for patience. And then the calls began. Daniel, sensing resistance, decided he needed help. He hired Gideon Hartwell, a divorce attorney, infamous for aggressive, unscrupulous tactics. I knew of Hartwell. Billboards across the city screamed, "We fight dirty so you don't have to." He had a reputation for overwhelming opponents with document requests, depositions, and courtroom theatrics. Daniel must have thought this would intimidate me. It didn't. I spent nights reading Hartwell's past cases, analyzing patterns, and crafting counter-strategies. I reviewed state codes, precedents for asset dissipation, and cases of marital misconduct. I cataloged every document in neat exhibits, cross-referencing dates, amounts, and digital footprints. My apartment transformed into a war room. Sticky notes, spreadsheets, screenshots, and printed documents surrounded me. I even found one social media post from Erin that made my pulse quicken. She had tagged herself in a luxury resort weeks ago, claiming a wellness retreat, all paid for from our funds. Through it all, I reminded myself not to act emotionally. Every time Daniel tried to bait me, small insults, sly comments about my supposed obsession with work, I maintained my composure. That night, I journaled quietly. He thinks I'll crumble. He thinks I'll panic. He underestimates me, and that will be his downfall. The tension between us became unbearable. Daniel began flaunting his new confidence, walking around as if he had already won. He mentioned casual dinners with Aaron, bragged about vacations, and occasionally smirked when I questioned expenses. Yet beneath that bravado, I saw cracks, hesitation, glances I couldn't match, brief moments where his composure faltered. Meanwhile, Erin revealed herself to be opportunistic. Through intercepted messages, I realized she wasn't in love with Daniel. She was in love with his money. Every plan, every flirtation, every stolen weekend was a calculated investment. They thought they were clever, but I was watching, documenting, recording. Then came the first official legal step. Daniel filed for divorce. His petition was aggressive: spousal support, exclusive use of the house, and full coverage of legal fees. He expected me to panic, to hire an attorney quickly. Instead, I responded by calmly preparing a self-representation strategy. My mind calculated every possible tactic Hartwell could use, from motions to delay to attempts at intimidating witnesses. I was ready. For the first court appearance, I dressed simply but with authority. My tailored blazer and understated heels contrasted sharply with Daniel, who arrived flanked by Erin, both meticulously styled, projecting an image of power and sophistication. Hartwell swaggered ahead, confident, smirking as though he could see my inexperience. He didn't know that for 10 years I had maintained my law license, kept up with continuing education, and mastered family law updates. I wasn't inexperienced, I was underestimated, and that is always a dangerous position for an opponent. Even before the judge entered, Hartwell tried to intimidate me. "Ms. Foster, you really think you can handle this alone? I can connect you with some lawyers who might take pity." I smiled faintly. "Thank you, but I'm prepared." Daniel leaned toward Hartwell, whispering, "She can't possibly." I caught the words, smiled inwardly, and thought, "Oh, she can, and she will." My inner monologue was calm but charged with anticipation. This is more than money. This is about reclaiming control, proving strength, and making sure betrayal has consequences. Every detail matters. Every document matters. And I won't falter. As the preliminary hearing approached, I reflected on what was at stake. Not just the house, not just the funds, but my dignity, my life's work, and the integrity of my decisions. I would not allow Daniel and Erin to rewrite reality. The next step would be confrontation in court, a war of law, evidence, and wits. I looked at the evidence one last time before bed, mentally rehearsing my statements. Every bank statement, every screenshot, every tagged post was a weapon. I knew their strategy: intimidate, overwhelm, manipulate. I had one advantage they couldn't anticipate: preparation, precision, and the calm of someone who refuses to be underestimated. As I drifted to sleep, I whispered to myself, almost like a promise: tomorrow, they'll see exactly who underestimated whom. Tomorrow, justice begins, not as a concept, but as action. The stage was set. The war had begun. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and tension. My heels clicked softly on the tile as I walked past the bustling crowd, past the murmurs of curiosity. Today was the preliminary hearing for temporary orders. Daniel had demanded exclusive use of the house, spousal support, and coverage of all legal fees. I, on the other hand, had a decade of law experience, a meticulously documented case, and a resolve sharpened by betrayal. Daniel entered with Erin at his side, her presence like a bright and irritating spotlight. He held his head high, confident, smug, and so utterly unprepared for what was about to happen. Hartwell swaggered ahead, carrying his folder as if mere confidence could intimidate a courtroom. The judge, Judge Althea Moreno, a stern woman with a reputation for seeing through pretension, entered. Silence fell. "Are the parties ready to proceed?" she asked. "Yes, Your Honor," Hartwell said smoothly, already projecting authority. "Yes, Your Honor," I replied calmly, my voice steady. No tremor, no hesitation. Hartwell immediately tried to undermine me before the hearing even began. "Your Honor, Ms. Foster appears to be representing herself, but I would urge the court to consider whether she truly understands the procedural demands." Judge Moreno raised an eyebrow. "Noted. We will proceed." Hartwell turned to me, smirking. "You really think you can handle this alone? You've been supporting this man for years. Maybe you should hire—" I stopped him with a measured smile. "I'm fully prepared, Mr. Hartwell. I'd like to submit Exhibit A through K for the court's consideration." Hartwell froze for a split second. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. I could see their confidence cracking, just slightly. Judge Moreno leaned forward. "Exhibit A through K, Ms. Foster. May I ask what these include?" I nodded. Your Honor, Exhibit A demonstrates that the petitioner, Daniel Jackson, has been withdrawing $3,000 monthly from our joint account for the past 18 months, purportedly for personal training sessions with Aaron, which, according to evidence, were private and not related to household needs. Exhibits B through D are credit card statements showing personal expenses averaging $12,000 monthly. Exhibit E is a social media post dated last week, publicly stating the petitioner's intent to take me for everything he's worth. Hartwell's face paled. Daniel blinked rapidly, caught mid-smile. Judge Moreno's eyes narrowed, scanning the exhibits. Mr. Hartwell, are you aware your client has posted about these intentions publicly? Hartwell fumbled. That's taken out of context, Your Honor. Context seems fairly clear, I said, keeping my tone even. Your Honor, regarding spousal support, I'd like to reference State Code Section 14 to 10-114, subsection 3, which allows the court to consider economic misconduct. The $54,000 withdrawn from our joint account without authorization constitutes economic misconduct. The judge's gaze sharpened. Ms. Foster, are you a practicing attorney? I smiled faintly. I have maintained my license for 10 years, Your Honor, with full continuing education. I've chosen not to practice commercially, but I am fully competent to represent myself in this matter. Hartwell's jaw tightened. Daniel's smug smile was gone, replaced by disbelief. Erin looked down at her designer shoes, suddenly self-conscious. The hearing escalated quickly. Hartwell attempted to intimidate me with procedural threats, demanding continuances, motions to dismiss my exhibits, and unsolicited legal advice. I countered every attempt with precision, citing rules, precedents, and proper documentation. Each objection he raised, I either sustained or methodically dismantled, leaving him increasingly flustered. Then came the turning point. Cross-examination. I presented a sequence of text messages, social media interactions, and photographs, each illustrating not just the affair, but deliberate attempts to drain financial resources and manipulate me. Aaron's opportunistic motives became clear, the judge absorbing each piece of evidence with quiet, growing interest. I paused, glancing at Daniel. Mr. Jones, can you explain why you withdrew funds labeled for personal training and transferred them for personal vacations and luxury purchases? Daniel opened his mouth, then shut it, flustered. Hartwell whispered something, but the words fell flat. The courtroom was silent except for the quiet rustle of papers. Finally, I introduced the crown jewel, a screen-recorded video from Erin's private social media story, where she and Daniel discussed using the funds for a getaway while I was at work. The recording played on the court's monitor. Aaron gasped. Daniel's face went red, and Hartwell's hands shook slightly. Judge Moreno leaned back. This is thorough. She gave Hartwell a pointed look. Mr. Hartwell, are you requesting a continuance? No, Your Honor, I said, and the courtroom felt the weight behind my words. By the end of the hearing, temporary orders were denied. Daniel was required to return the $54,000 within 30 days, and no spousal support would be granted. The judge cited economic misconduct, emphasizing that the unauthorized financial withdrawals constituted a serious breach of marital obligations. As we left the courtroom, I felt a mixture of vindication and exhaustion. Daniel walked silently, his plans unraveling, Aaron trailing behind, visibly shaken. Hartwell muttered something to himself, his swagger diminished. I didn't celebrate, not yet. There was still a trial ahead. The permanent division of assets, the confrontation of lies, the final reckoning. But one thing was clear. Daniel had underestimated me. And in underestimating me, he had already begun to lose. In the quiet of my car, I exhaled deeply. This is only the beginning. I know every move they'll make, and I'm ready. Monday morning arrived like a storm. The courthouse was buzzing. News of the self-representing attorney taking on Daniel Jackson and his notorious lawyer, Gideon Hartwell, had spread. Whispers floated through the halls, curious glances followed me, and for the first time in months, I felt the steady calm of purpose. Daniel arrived, meticulously dressed, his arrogance thinly masking nervousness. Aaron trailed behind, designer sunglasses shielding eyes that darted everywhere. Hartwell strode ahead, confident, or at least trying to appear so. Judge Moreno entered, no nonsense as ever, and the room fell silent. Are we ready to proceed? She asked. Yes, Your Honor, Hartwell said, attempting a poised tone. Yes, Your Honor, I replied evenly, glancing briefly at Daniel and Aaron. Their forced composure did not escape me. Hartwell began with his opening statement, painting Daniel as a devoted husband wronged by a bitter, self-serving wife. He described me as cold, obsessed with work, and ill-prepared. Aaron, he claimed, had been a supportive friend, a mere witness to marital struggles. I listened, letting his words float over me like smoke, waiting for my turn. My inner monologue was focused, strategic, and unshakably calm. This isn't about emotion. It's about evidence, law, and exposing the truth. Every lie will crumble under scrutiny. When my turn came, I spoke with precision. Your Honor, this marriage ended not because of neglect or misunderstanding, but because of deception, economic misconduct, and deliberate betrayal. The petitioner engaged in a 3-year affair with Aaron, siphoning $54,000 from our joint accounts without authorization, hiding assets, and planning to take me for everything. The evidence includes texts, bank statements, social media posts, and a recorded video showing the petitioner and Aaron discussing their financial strategy at my expense. Hartwell attempted to object repeatedly, but Judge Moreno overruled him each time. Every exhibit I presented built on the last. The timeline of theft, the premeditation, and the audacity of their plan became undeniable. Then came cross-examination. I held Daniel's gaze, calm and unwavering. Mr. Jones, I began, you have publicly stated, both in social media posts and private messages, that you intended to take your spouse for everything she was worth. Can you explain these statements? Daniel's face went pale. Hartwell muttered under his breath, but I pressed on. Why did you transfer funds from our joint accounts to pay for vacations and luxury purchases for yourself and Aaron? Daniel stammered, offering excuses that sounded increasingly hollow. Aaron's composure cracked visibly, a hand shaking slightly as she clutched her designer purse. Then came the pivotal moment, the video evidence. The recording of Daniel and Aaron plotting their getaway played in court. The judge, Daniel, Aaron, and Hartwell all watched the betrayal unfold. Aaron gasped. Daniel's face burned red. The courtroom was silent, except for the clear, incriminating dialogue. Judge Moreno finally spoke. This is compelling. Mr. Hartwell, any response? Hartwell faltered. His prepared strategies collapsed under the weight of irrefutable evidence. By the end of the trial, the ruling was decisive. Divorce granted on grounds of adultery and economic misconduct. Daniel required to repay the $54,000 siphoned from joint accounts. No spousal support granted. Property division heavily favored me, acknowledging Daniel's misconduct and misuse of assets. Aaron's involvement documented, reinforcing the deliberate nature of the betrayal. Daniel and Aaron sat frozen, disbelief etched on their faces. Hartwell muttered something about unfair advantage, but the judge shut him down swiftly. The only deception proven in this courtroom is your client's. Ms. Foster has simply chosen to represent herself, fully within her rights and abilities. After court, as I gathered my belongings, I allowed myself a quiet smile. There was no gloating, no celebration, only the quiet satisfaction of justice served and integrity intact. Daniel left in silence, Aaron trailing behind him, their plans dissolved. In the car, I finally allowed myself a moment of reflection. Betrayal had cut deep, yes, but so had it sharpened my resolve. I had navigated anger, heartbreak, and fear, and emerged stronger, wiser, and unshakably confident in my own strength. I thought back to every subtle sign I had ignored, every trust I had given blindly. They were lessons now, not regrets. And while Daniel and Aaron had gambled on my naivety, I had proven that preparation, intelligence, and calm resolve are more powerful than bravado and deceit. Weeks later, I framed a screenshot of Aaron's plotting, a reminder of the audacity that had tried to crush me. Next to it hung my law degree and bar license, a silent testament to resilience, strategy, and the ability to stand firm even when betrayed by those closest to you. As I returned to my life, work, friendships, and quiet evenings at home, I carried a new understanding. Betrayal may wound, but it can also illuminate strength. And justice, when pursued with clarity and skill, is a satisfaction unlike any other. The lesson I learned? Never underestimate the quiet strength of someone who knows both the law and their own worth.